This video was sponsored by Surfshark VPN. When it comes to custom Gunpla, so far I've been trying to stick with a theme for each one. The first one I did and the first one I ever did on here was trying to mash together two iconic otaku classics. That of course is the Granddaddy Gundam RX-78-2 with the Vocaloid Hatsune Miku. When I used to live in Japan, anytime I'd go shopping in Akihabara for some Gunpla, you would always hear Hatsune Miku, so that's why I went with that. So for this custom Gunpla, I decided to go with what was probably my most controversial review ever. That of course is the high-grade Cherudim Gundam Saga. So basically the gist of it is, I gave this a pretty bad review, and the general consensus from a bunch of different reviews on different sites, everything like that, pretty much says that this is a very good Gunpla. So in my defense, first off, I will mention this video was made back in what was dubbed the Dark Ages. Just to sum it up, I had just left Japan under bad circumstances, was pretty much between homes, and this channel right here was not monetized, so I may have been a little bit in a negative mood, so I decided I should check this kit out again. I still had it, I checked it out, and I will admit, the polycap that was in the leg right there that kept falling off was in backwards, so my bad. But besides that, honestly, I still felt the same as I did back then about this kit. So I will mention, in general, Gunpla is always good. When you go for Gunpla, you're still getting awesome model kits most of the time. So I will say that when I say something is bad, I mean it in terms of Gunpla, not model kits in general. Cause like I said already, this is rated very high, 5 stars all over the place, but then again, check out these. If you're like me, sometimes just building a Gunpla can completely change your opinion of the mobile suit it's based on. I've built Gunpla of so many, countless mobile suits that I never really had all that much of a strong feeling about before building the kit, and then after building the kit, absolutely falling in love with the mobile suit. So I thought, when I make these reviews, a lot of the time I tend to take a one-dimensional approach. What does this look like just out of the box? I never really think from the perspective of a Gundam customizer or someone who customizes all of their Gunpla as to whether or not it would be a good candidate for that. So this whole experience right here is me taking a deep dive, customizing the Cherudim Gundam Saga to see if it will give me a better insight into the kit and if it will change my mind as to whether it is a good kit or not.
I'm Spooky the Night Gremlin, online criminal mastermind extraordinaire. And I'm taking time out from my hobbies of data theft, tracing, surveillance, and commercial targeting to finally track down that spit's rim, steal her data, her money, and finally air her dirty laundry online. Wait, what's this? She's in France 1 second, then in the UK, now she's in China again. Damn it, it's that Surfshark VPN and they're meddling multi-hop. She's connecting via multiple countries at once to take ID protection and footprint masking to a whole other level. Surfshark VPN with its camouflage mode is the online equivalent of that cool, freaky suit from the Invisible Man. You'll stay private, always. She can't be located while she torrents only the newest, hottest anime like Assault Lilies, Akuya Drive, and Higurashi no Nakukoro ni Go that are not yet available outside of Japan. She's enjoying safe and fast torrenting while slowly becoming a bigger, better, more elite anime enthusiast than those who wait for anime to become available in the West. Wait, don't tell me that's you. Seriously? Really? I have somewhere else to be right now. Oh man. I really thought better of them. I thought they were cool and got Surfshark VPN through that link in the description using the code Mecha to get 83% off and 3 months for free, but I bet they haven't even seen the latest episode of Golden Kamuy. I really hope nobody saw me talking to them.
So the theme for this build right here is Well, a lot of people kind of got annoyed by the review, so maybe it should have come with a bit of a trigger warning. So here we go. This is the 1/44th scale Cherudim Gundam trigger warning. You know, cause it's got a lot of guns, right? So going into this build was a lot different than going into the build with the RX-78 Gundam, the Origin. That's a new kit with a lot of nice features, whereas this is a bit of an older kit that has a lot of older technology that, well, you have to make up for before you can even start customizing it. So that means this time I had to learn a whole bunch of new techniques. So this kit is rife with a lot of issues. Number one is all the mold and seam lines from the fact that this is pretty dated Gunpla technology. Molds are fine and easy, just sand them off, end of story, they're gone forever. However, those seams are a whole different story. On the Cherudim Gundam Saga, they're in some really obvious awkward places. We've got one right down the center of the head. Actually, it wouldn't be so bad if it was in the center of the head. It's actually off center in a place the Cherudim would not have any kind of armor split. The same goes with the legs. There's a seam all the way down the front and back of the lower section of both of the legs. These are some wickedly bad seam lines. The second major issue that I had to learn some new techniques to deal with this time around is the fact that this kit has terrible part separation. Basically that means there's not a lot of parts to this kit per se, so if you want to paint it in any kind of interesting color, you can't just separate all the parts into little piles, spray them all up the color you want, and then be done with it. No, you have to do a lot of masking because all of the different armor sections are basically connected. So yeah, this right here was basically time to level up some of my techniques. And essentially my approach to this is like my approach to most things in life, and that is try it first without looking at how to do it, try and figure it out, make all the mistakes, then learn how to do it properly. So I will mention this right here is not a tutorial by any means, and not necessarily the right way. More than likely a lot of this is the, well, terrible way. So for the mold lines, this is pretty straightforward. It's just sandy time. And you will notice from here on out, I have absolutely terrible equipment. One thing I can never seem to find is a good supply store for equipment for model building in Europe. Something that has an extensive amount of stuff. So that means for this build, I could only use what I had on hand, which wasn't a lot. So after those mold lines, next on the chopping block are those massive seams. So because I build quite a bit of Warhammer, I knew how to tackle this. Before I could even deal with the seam, I ran into a brick wall. And that was, what do you do when you're sealing a seam line when there's a part inside of it that you want to paint a different color, but once you seal that seam line, it's going to be stuck in there forever? Once again, this may not be the right way, but it's the first thing that popped into my head. It was basically to modify the lower section of the leg so I could slot that little bit of armor in and out after it had been sealed. Now this is why I didn't seal every piece of armor on this kit that needed to be sealed, because I couldn't really think of a way to approach them. For example, the head. So once I had that bit modified so I could slot that knee section in and out while it's sealed up, I got around to sealing it. So I sealed this using Games Workshop's plastic cement. Once again, I know the best thing to use is Tamiya extra thin, but once again, cannot get. Thankfully, this did work like a dream, fused the plastic together perfectly with that excess pouring out, so all I had to do then was sand that away, and absolutely seamless. The next step then was to prime that kit. This is something I learned from the last build, which was the Hatsune Miku RX-78-2, where all the paint basically chipped off of it from not priming it. So this time around, I primed the entire kit. And this is something I've never done before, and something I've always loved to see in other people's work in progress photos. And that, of course, is that absolutely grayed out Gundam covered in Mr. Surfacer. It just looks so cool. You can see all the details, you can see all the mistakes and everything that needs to be dealt with. This looks beautiful. I love it. It looks like a giant stone Gundam, and that's pretty cool. So next was to choose some paints that would give the impression of a trigger warning out of the very limited selection I have. So to me, when I thought warning, what came to my mind is that yellow and black hazard pattern. So I'm using Chaos Black by Games Workshop. as well as Yellow by Tamiya Color. Yeah, just plain yellow. And of course you can't think of alarm and danger without a nice healthy dose of red. So this is Tamiya's metallic red. So taking some tips from my favorite red Gundam, Gundam Astaroth, I decided to go for some Astaroth-y highlights. So that was some gray from Tamiya, some of Games Workshop's Wraithbone, and some of Tamiya's metallic gunmetal. And the reason I forget what gray that was is because in the end, I didn't actually use it. And while I'm mentioning Gundam Astaroth right here, I know a lot of you guys have been asking for years what has ever happened to that Dantalian Mecha Gaikotsu Gundam custom that I was going to do, and I've finally bought a whole bunch of Iron-Blooded Orphans kits in which to do it. I'm not just going to go straight Dantalian, I'm going to go full custom Gundam frame. So look out for that sometime in future. So this wouldn't be a custom Cherudim Saga without customizing all of those guns, and this, woo, that was a nightmare. First off, I tried to seal all the seam lines on these, which means that clear piece is locked in there for good. Once again, my lack of tools bit me in the ass, and that means I've nothing to hold the guns together while they're setting, so the seam lines did not really get filled. However, I did use some Mr. Surfacer to try and fill that in a bit, but it was not as effective as if I had gotten it right the first time. Next up, it was time to try and deal with the fact that this kit isn't very well part separated, and that means it was time to get masking. Something I did do a little bit of before, but not these sort of complex shapes, and this was not easy. Not easy at all. I tried everything. Big bits of masking tape, small bits of masking tape. I even tried using some white tack to just fill in the spaces and kind of mold it in to make it easier, but, well, let's just say things didn't really work out in the end. I'll get to that later. So what should have taken me basically one evening took me multiple days, actually a lot longer. Because, once again, limited tools. The place I bought these little airbrushing clips from only had 2 boxes of them, which means I had only 8 clips, so let's just say it took a long time to paint everything. Once I had all of the base colors down, I realized I wanted a little bit more depth to some of the parts, so back to the masking I went. And I have to say, honestly, I do enjoy masking straight lines, but only straight lines. I also wanted to add a little bit more dimension to the shield, so I masked off the whole front of it to spray the back of it in that metallic gunmetal. And I did exactly the same to the inside of the butt flap, which had a nice little panel where the grenades are, and I wanted to give it a little bit more depth. Once again, masking to make up for the lack of part separation. When it came to straight lines and undersides, everything went really well, but when it came to complex shapes like the chest, which I wanted to paint in both red and black, things didn't go so smoothly. A lot of the lines were a little bit on the wiggly side, and I did get a lot of paint getting through my terrible attempts to mummify different aspects of the kit. Still, not so bad, but not as good as I had hoped. So then I hit a little bit of an impasse. Basically, I wanted to speed this up because it was taking so long, and I know the general consensus is when it comes to panel lining painted kits, it's to gloss coat it first before panel lining, and in general, not to use panel lining markers. But hey, I was running out of time and, well, limited equipment. So basically I was going to find out if it worked and why you should or should not use panel lining markers on bare paint. Once again, we'll get back to that later. Next up, I wanted to see what sort of effect gloss top coat would make on a already glossy metallic paint. It really did work out well. It looked glossy, shinier, kind of like car paint, and honestly, looked pretty cool. As this here was a kit I had already built for a review, all of the shiny foil stickers were already on this kit, so I just masked them off and sprayed over. Thankfully, this did not destroy them. I will also mention at this point, I did take all the green parts of this kit and hit them with a matte top coat because I thought they might be cool in a kind of light diffusey sort of way. Once again, like everything I mentioned so far that I did not give you the answer to whether it worked or not, I will talk about that later. Even though I had told myself, that's it, I'm done, I'm just gonna put this together, I'm finished, I could not help myself. I just wanted to do more. So I bust out the paints for a little bit of brush painted details, and then I realized this thing needs, and absolutely just needs, decals. So I grabbed some decals from the Master Grade Dynamez, that is the Trans Am version, and these matched quite well. So to speed along the process, basically I just started putting it together. Anywhere that looked like it needed a little bit more pizzazz, I just stuck a decal on there. top coated that section, moved on to the next one. I went with gloss top coat for the shiny metallic parts, matte top coat for the black parts. At this point I realized the spraying of matte top coat onto the clear green parts was not necessarily a good idea and absolutely killed the luster of the GN condensers. I also realized that painting the whole inside of this butt flap section with the grenades was probably a waste of time because I'll never open it, but hey, it looks nice. Then I was about to paint the eyes with this absolutely crazy color by Games Workshop, which is called Tesseract Glow, but then I thought I might be going a little too far and decided against it. Still an absolutely crazy color though. I realized that the yellow on the guns looked absolutely hideous beside the knees that I painted in the hazard pattern, so I decided to spray those black, masked them poorly, and ended up with this. So I basically hand painted all the black parts on those guns in black, and I hate hand painting stuff because I cannot hide the brush strokes. So honestly at this point nothing was working out, and it just seemed like everything was a failure. That was until I put it all together and I learned never judge a mecha by its components, because honestly, I'm really happy with the way that this came out. Sure, a lot of things could have went better, but if everything went as planned, I would not have learned anything new. Yeah, the colors turned out a bit more Gurren Lagann than Gundam Astaroth. Either that, I was feeling a little bit on the hungry side. But hey, I'm cool with that. So as for those challenges that I did mention at the beginning and what I learned from this here experiment, let's get right back to those two original issues that I had with this kit. Number one was the mold and the seam lines. The mold lines are easy, just sand them off, they're gone, so simple. Nowhere to be seen, gone forever. But as for those seam lines, that was a whole different situation. As you can see up here on the shoulders, they are gone forever. These were quite easy to do because they are flat surfaces. When it comes to the difficult areas like the legs, this was a whole lot more difficult. So what I got is mixed results. Some parts look good. For example, around the back you would never even notice that there was a seam line there, but around front there was some parts that were so hard to reach, once again, because of the limited amount of tools that I have. Also those little square segments on the front, I wish I filled those in because they are just plain ugly now. So what I learned from this is, I need some more new tools and never to bother customizing a kit with massive seams in it. As for the seam lines that I did not close up, they're still here. The one across the top of the head, I did not approach that one, mainly because I didn't know how I could assemble the head if I did seal that up. Same goes with the forearms, I didn't seal those ones either. Also, I will mention I totally half-assed it on the weapons as well because I did tackle them after the robot and I thought everything was going downhill, so I just wanted it finished. As for issue the second that I had with Cherudim right here, that was the lack of part separation, which means I had to mask off a lot of segments. So the simple, straight lines like the ones on the side skirts here, those went great and I loved doing this. The hazard pattern could have went a little bit better, but it's not so bad. I will mention that what I did here was I just manually cut standard masking tape to size. If you've got a better way of doing this, please let me know. Because this was pretty hard to do, hard to get over uneven surfaces, and I got a lot of bleed. And don't even get me started like the difficult shapes on the legs. I'm actually glad I pulled this off at all. As for what I learned from this is, maybe get a little bit crazy with patterns on simple areas and flat surfaces, and also time to learn some new, probably more advanced techniques. As well as those issues that I was expecting, a few unexpected ones did crop up along the way. First off is, these Tamiya paints have feck all paint in them. I ran out of red so quickly that a lot of areas that I wanted a deeper red just didn't get the amount of paint that I wanted. This whole can barely even covered the one kit. The black sections here on the guns, those I actually wanted to be in a matching red to the suit. In the end, I am glad that they're black, but man, not a lot of paint in these cans. But because I could not paint those guns red, that means I used yellow, realized that the hazard patterns would be too hard to do on the sides of them, especially the sides with the handles, so I just stuck with the yellow clashed with the knees, I spray painted them black, screwed that up, and had to hand paint them. I will mention that the hand painting looked horrendous, so I just hit it with a couple of coats of gloss, top coat, and a bunch of decals to kind of distract from the fact that they did not look good. So as for what I've learned from these things is, maybe buy an airbrush and if something looks bad, cover it in decals. Next up, matte top coat does not look good on clear parts unless light is able to pass right through them. If they're on top of something, for example like a head camera or something similar to that, they will not look good. It just deadens the look of the clear plastic. It does look good in front of a light though. This nice diffuse look is cool, but once again, in the GN condensers it did not look bad, so I just used some gloss top coat to try and bring some life back into them. So as for panel lining on bare paint, that is panel lining right onto the paint without top coating it, I got some mixed results from this. The metallic red already felt like it had a top coat. It had a nice glossy hard surface, so that means if I drew into the panel lines with the panel lining marker, I could wipe off the excess with no issue. Though this wasn't the case for all of the paints. That paint I used up on the face and various areas of the head is Games Workshop's Wraithbone. Now this is a more dry feeling porous paint, so when I used the brown panel lining marker on that, it instantly stained whatever it touched, so you have to be so careful with it, and still I got a little bit of a hazy look. However, it did look pretty cool with that nice brown panel line. The last thing I learned then is that Tamiya's TS83 Metallic Silver is mesmerizingly godlike, one of the most beautiful paints I have ever seen, and I wish I had used it on more places than just the thrusters. I love this paint. It doesn't look like paint. So yeah, that right there is what my custom Cherudim Gundam Saga ended up looking like. There was a lot of rocky climbs, a lot of things did not work out, and a lot of things did. If you've got any tips, any way you would have approached anything that I did with this kit differently, then drop it down in the comments. I would love to know how you would have went about it. So as for the overall big question, at the end of the day, has this whole deep dive into the high-grade Cherudim Gundam Saga given me more respect for this particular kit? And the answer is, nope, I actually dislike it more. But it has given me so much more respect for people like this, who can take a subpar kit with a plethora of issues and turn it into a 1/44th scale plastic model masterpiece. If there's something that a kit like this does, is that it will really test your Gunpla customizing skills and take them to the limit. Honestly, how I feel at the end of the day is, for me I feel that 20, 30, 40, whatever amount of hours spent customizing a kit would be better spent on a kit that is good out of the box. Because if you're spending a whole host of those hours fixing issues with a kit, adding detail it does not have, you could have spent all those hours on the fun parts of customizing a kit that didn't need to have that done. And as for what is going to come next, maybe, just maybe, I might have something in time for Halloween, but I won't make any promises. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to come back for more Gunpla reviews and some more customizing videos. Once again, drop your tips down there in the comments. I would love to read them. And of course, I'll see you next time. Once again, I cannot finish this video right here without thanking each and every one of you guys. Whether you just watch my videos, like them, or support the channel on the channel memberships and over on Patreon. Like Craig Jury, Greg Humphrey, Kaiser721, Tyler Sanders, Caleb Engelhardt, Sean T, and the ambassador for Asymmetric Cat.